Caddis Maximus here. This time I'm doing a review and comparison of the DeWalt 29-piece drill index set. This is the, I guess, the common one that's sold in most hardware stores, as well as the Harbor Freight Warrior 29-piece 64 drill index set. There is a difference. This is the Cobalt set from Harbor Freight, where this is a standard high-speed steel DeWalt set. But I'm not going to be drilling to a bunch of heavy-duty, hardened steel, stainless steels. But Cobalt drill bits are generally better. They are more expensive. They are more brittle. They are a little easier to break. However, they can take a lot more heat and remain hard through a lot more tough conditions. And that's really where their advantage lies, is the heat. The increased heat resistance means that right at the very fine cutting edge of the drill bit, if I can pull one out, drill bits tend to drill dull right where they're used the most, which is right here at the fine cutting edge. And surprisingly enough, when you're cutting metal, it's more of a chiseling action. It's not a cutting action such as a knife, as it is more like a whittling wood or something like that. And so the addition of Cobalt really increases the temperature resistance, because that's where the heat happens, is that actually the very fine cutting edge gets hot enough to where it starts to anneal and get soft. And so the whole Cobalt just helps prevent that, and that's why they perform so well in things like stainless steel and hardened steels. Where you can drill those materials with standard high-speed steel bits, they just wear out faster and you have to resharpen them more often. Another difference is that this Harbor Freight set is traditional split point drill bits, where the DeWalt has been doing this for some time, and that is their kind of pilot point system. And I don't like those quite as much. Actually, let's compare those to the Harbor Freights here, and I'll do a little demonstration in a minute, just doing some drilling of the 6061 aluminum, just to see how the finish is using both these kinds of drill bits. The other big difference between these two bits, besides the pilot point, and that's what the DeWalt does here, is that this pilot point, it has a little kind of narrowed down area. If we can get this to focus, there we go. And that little narrowed down area is supposed to act kind of like a real small drill bit, where it kind of pilots in the hole, and then the full diameter grabs. Personally, I haven't been super fond of this style drill bit for drilling metals. It doesn't seem to hold up as well, but for drilling wood, it seems to be very good. Now, another thing that we can see on these drill bits is that you can see the webbing on this Harbor Freight. It's just a standard ground, just regular series twist drill. Now, on this DeWalt, you can see where it's real thick at the front, but as we get near the tip, it's very thin, so it has a progressive fluting or a progressive grind. And indeed means that when you're working with plastics and woods, that these DeWalt bits can actually chew through real fast. But they have an Achilles heel, which I also don't like in metal, which is this progressive grinding makes them want to get caught and kind of screw into the material right when you get to the end of a hole, or if you're drilling through thin materials, and it makes them a bit more difficult to use than a drill bit that has a traditional wide fluting. Now, you can always tell all Cobalt drill bits, we can see that this DeWalt is just, as it says DeWalt, it's just a regular drill bit. What I do like is that the DeWalt does grind flats, so you do get, something else for your money out of the DeWalt, is that they have ground flats, at least on all the ones that have the pilot points. Or on the Harbor Freight, they are just a standard smooth shank. But you do know that you have Cobalt drill bits, if we can get this to focus, is you can just barely see there, but this will say CO, this says HSSCO. Sometimes they'll say CO5 or M35, that all means 5% cobalt. Then there's also CO8 or M42 bits, which are 8% cobalt. They are the real premium drill bits, and you rarely see those. So if you look for, say, Milwaukee premium grade drill bits, Milwaukee has a $1,100 115-piece set of Cobalt drill bits that are actually 8%, but yeah, they're $1,100. It's crazy. One of the most expensive items from Milwaukee. Another thing I forgot to mention is with standard drill bits, such as these Harbor Freights, when they dull, you can just use a grinder and resharpen them nice and easily. With these pilot points, the pilot point works fine, but as soon as they wear out, you can still regrind them or resharpen them just like you can with a standard drill bit, but you end up grinding away the whole pilot point. So I think you're kind of paying for something that really isn't, one, that effective, and 2, goes away the moment that you regrind it. That's the same deal with split tip drill bits. These are both split tip drill bits, as you can see. How you know it's a split tip is because of the way the grind makes these 2 little inner cutting edges, so it makes it want to walk less. It doesn't prevent it from walking more or at all. Walking is when you start drilling the drill bit and it kind of wants to wander from one side or the other unless you're like in a drill press. And so the split tip does help reduce that, but it's still nothing compared to drilling a very small hole initially, a pilot hole, and then drilling again with the full-size bit. Another thing to mention is that the DeWalt doesn't do the pilot point on all the bits. If we lift this up here, we can see that the pilot point, the smallest one, is the 3/16 here. Smaller than that, and they have standard tips. If we can get this to focus again. The camera's having trouble today. We can see that it just has a standard split tip on anything smaller than 3/16, although it still has a highly twisted progressive grind on it. We can also see on the smaller ones that they don't put they don't grind any flats onto them. Anyway, I'm just going to do a quick comparison, say of 5/16 drilling through some 60 series aluminum, just to show the difference between how the DeWalt bits drill versus traditional bits. And part of the review and comparison is that this Harbor Freight set is around the same price as this DeWalt set, and quite frankly, for my personal preference, I'd actually go with the Harbor Freight Cobalts because 1, they're Cobalt, and 2, the way that these progressive ground pilot point bits just aren't my favorite, particularly for metal drilling. They work great in really soft materials, woods and plastics. But to tell you the truth, my general recommendation would be to go with the Harbor Freights. They're going to end up lasting longer. They'll juice through all materials. They're just, good old regular drill bits. And for the same price, you just get those extra heavy-duty Cobalts. If you're a carpenter and you're doing a lot of wood drilling, then these DeWalts may actually pay themselves off just because of how aggressive and how quickly they drill, but they tend not to leave the best finish. So anyway, let me get set up for that little demo. Okay, I've actually decided to go ahead and use 1/4 inch just so it'd be less likely to grab because I don't have the heaviest vise here. Alright, I'm going to do a little drilling demonstration, and then we'll take a look at the holes. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Harbor Freight 1/4 inch drill bit. It is aluminum. I'm going to do this dry without cutting fluid because it's just 1/4 inch, quick little demonstration. We'll be running this at 2,000 RPM. Always remember to wear safety goggles. Let's go ahead and just do this. Let's see if I can not block the view too bad. Drilling through this, we'll do it right here, right in the middle, so I won't catch the vise. Here we go. Alright, I ended up knocking the camera down as it punched through. It actually took surprisingly more downward force than I was expecting just to drill a 1/4 inch hole through there. Anyway, let's swap out and try that DeWalt bit. Okay, once again, 1/4 inch, 2,000 RPM, 1/4 inch thick, 6061 T6 aluminum. And this should show that indeed the pilot points are faster drilling, but they still have the issues I mentioned earlier. So let's see how quickly we can get through it. Everything's the same, just a DeWalt pilot point with the progressive fluting. We'll see if I have to put significantly less pressure on here. Wow. Certainly did build up quite the bird's nest on that drill bit there. That's one of the reasons you wear safety glasses. Give me a second, get this cleaned up, and we'll take a look. Okay, here's our piece. Let's go ahead and zoom in a bit here. We'll zoom in a ton. And a couple things I can say about that experience. It's true, the DeWalt bits are faster drilling, no question about that. Secondly, you don't have to press as hard as you do with the traditional Harbor Freight or a traditional split tip drill bit. There was actually 20 or 30% less pressure I had to put on there. What that meant was that when I broke through the other side with the Harbor Freight drill, I was putting so much pressure on that I couldn't control it, and I came all the way down and of course damaged the surface. Where with the DeWalt hole, with the less pressure meant that I was able to control it on breakthrough and not actually slam the chuck into the face of the surface or the surface of the material, and I didn't cause the same damage. I guess I had kind of forgotten about that, but there is no doubt. Now, if we look at the quality of the holes, excuse me, what's kind of surprising is that the standard twist drill did walk and wander a little bit, so it did wallow out right at the beginning of the hole, and then it ended up being not too bad. We can see the surface inside there is actually pretty decent. If we go over to the DeWalt hole, the surface is just a bit rougher the way that step tip, that pilot point, kind of drills through. And if we look at the breakthrough side, we can see that the standard twist drill actually had a smaller burr on breakthrough, where that split tip bit, or excuse me, that pilot point bit did raise some pretty large burrs. If we look at it flat here, we can see that there's actually quite a bit of material that is rolled over on the exit point, where with the standard drill bit, it did drill a cleaner hole, and we can see it on the back side here. This is a bit more roughness, where on this side it's actually pretty smooth. So for that speed that you get out of the DeWalt bits, they just don't drill quite as nice a hole. And this directly translates in the wood. I mean, I said that earlier. Those DeWalt bits, when you're drilling holes in wood, are super duper fast. Put them in one of those modern corded 2500 RPM 8 amp drills, and man, you can just fly through material. Anyway, I'll go ahead and end the review and comparison there of the DeWalt Pilot Point split tip bits versus the Harbor Freight Warrior Cobalt bits. I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.